محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم ارض عن الصحابة والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين واجعلنا منهم. اللهم آمين. Inshallah, as a continuation of our series to discuss thinkers and scholars of the 20th century and their role in the revival of the Ummah. Today we have a unique session, since until now we really talking about thinkers, but today's subject is about Allama, a mountain of ilm in the 20th century. Allah bless him until age 95. Spent 40 years in writing his tafsir, which is one of the most outstanding in the last few hundred years. So we'll leave it inshallah with Sheikh Shafiq Bakkari to enlighten us about Al-Imam Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur. تفضل. خليه وقف لوحده. ما يل امسك في ايدك كذا الاشكال عليك. بارك الله فيك.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. وبعد جزاك الله خير Brother Hisham for this opportunity, and with this great scholar that most of us or all of us are familiar with. I consider the time to prepare for this presentation as a short notice, because a scholar of the caliber of Sheikh al-Imam Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur needs a little more preparation. So I really apologize in advance if I couldn't get to the point I wanted to be presenting it to you, inshallah, tonight, inshallah. So let's start right away. So Sheikh Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur was one of the eminent scholars, contemporary scholars. Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id al-Kamali, he said that his sheikh told him that when Sheikh Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur is mentioned, his sheikh would say, this is the alim of al-Shamal al-Afriqi, of the North Africa, not only Tunisia, but all the North African region. So there is no question about the value of this scholar. But really, even for me, it was an opportunity to go and take a closer look to the life of this great scholar. He was born in the 19th century in 1879. And he passed away 1973. So it's about 94 years. When I was doing my research, I found out there is not much said about him. And even the events are so many because he lived a long life. But when you go to search and try to get to the bottom of some events that happened, sometimes you find some contradictions. And you don't find really, because I think one of the reasons behind that no one took on his shoulders to write a biography of this scholar. Because as is mentioned, his two sons died before him. So even the children that you can count on to write the legacy, they passed away during his life. One of them is the great scholar, and some of us are confusing him with the Sheikh Muhammad, which is Sheikh Fadil Tahir bin Ashur. It's not Muhammad, but Fadil, his son, was again another big scholar. So I'm going to just give you a little history. So we said he was born in 1879, and the French colonization started in 1881 and ended around 1956, but actually it was 1962 when they completely left Tunisia. So he lived all his life, or most of it, during the French colonization. So this has to be taken in consideration. Before the French took over Tunisia under the pretext that it's a protectorate, meaning they're protecting Tunisia. It was under something called the Beylik Tunisia. Beylik is from, it's a Turkish word, which means it's like a kingdom. It's called Ayyala in Arabic. And Beylik, it's run by a bey. It's just like a prince. It was dependent from the Ottoman Empire. So they got in that, and then France took over under the pretext that it's protecting Tunisia and its borders, Algerian borders. So we're going to go through some events in his life before we go back and discuss other stuff. So first, he was born in a family of teachers and religious scholars, that's for sure. He belonged to this said, according to some sources, he belonged to an aristocracy that was both religious and political. He was the grandson of two high-ranking figures in Beylik, Tunisia. One of them is from his mother's side, and one of them is from his father's side. So from his father's side, it's Tahir bin Ashur, Qadi, Mufti, because actually his grandfather is like the name of him, Muhammad Tahir bin Ashur again. And Naqib of Ashraf, because before coming to Tunisia, from Andalusia, from Muslim Spain, from Andalus, they resided in Morocco for a long time. And they became Ashraf. When the Adarisa came, so they are from the Ashraf of Adaris. He is from the Ashraf of Adarisa. Then they moved to Tunisia. So his grandfather was called Naqib of Ashraf, and his grandfather from his mother's side, Muhammad al-Aziz Bouattour, he was a Zaytunian, from Zaytuna, Jami' Zaytuna, and a minister, then a prime minister from 1882 to 1907. I just want you to pay attention to these dates. That his grandfather became a minister right after the French protectorate. This is some information that we have to keep in mind. Ashraf are the honorable people. They are called Ashraf because they are related to the Prophet ﷺ. They are from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. They called Ashraf. Of course, his grandfather made him as his spiritual son. He was Sheikh Muhammad Tahir bin Ashur. I'm going kind of a little fast through these events. He was promoted to first-class professor in Jami' al-Zaytuna in 1905. He was 26 years old only at that time. And Jami' al-Zaytuna, for those who are not familiar with Jami' al-Zaytuna, it's the oldest university in the world when it comes to Shari'i knowledge. Yes, it was not well structured as Jami' al-Qarawiyyin in Fas, in Morocco, but it was built before, at least 100 years before Jami' al-Qarawiyyin, by one of the Tabi'in, or tabi' al-tabi'in. And this is different than Al-Qayrawan. Jami' Al-Qayrawan is just a masjid that was built the time of Uqma ibn Nafi'. And Jami' al-Zaytuna was the place where scholars like Ibn Khaldun, that everybody maybe is familiar with, Ibn Arafa is one of the Maliki faqih, and other scholars as well. So that's where he became a first-class professor at the age of 26. I saw a picture of him, just to give you an idea. It's really, this is kind of, when you talk about someone who passed away, you have to be careful, especially if he's a scholar and well-respected. I'm just conveying you what I found. And this foundation, as I said, sometimes they contradict each other because we cannot find, like, it's hard to verify the credibility of some sources. So in that picture, at the age of 26, and he's a teacher, he's just like, if you look at him, you look at a Uthmani person with a mustache and no beard, and he's wearing like the shoes, like European shoes, or something like that. There is pictures you can find in the internet. I'm just saying this to keep this in mind, because
we need to retire. Oh, we have something else. يا brother الله يرضى عليك. ما يصير. في عندنا واحدة ثانية حد شفي. الحمد لله. الحمد لله. retire الله عليك.
So we're trying to get as much closer to his personality as we can, and the way he was brought up and what influenced him. Now, he was teaching in two places. Jami' al-Zaytuna, which was called al-Masjid al-A'dam as well. And this is traditional style, the way they used to teach Shari'i knowledge. But he was also teaching at the same time in a school called As-Sadiqiyya. Sadiqiyya, from 1905 to 1913, 1923, 1932, where he also became a member of the board of directors. This experience gave him the opportunity to see up close the modern teaching methods. This Sadiqiyya was kind of influenced by the French culture. He was introduced to modern methods of teaching, and they said he had the opportunity to rub shoulders with teachers trained in France and in secular schools. Now, this is very important. This is why I choose to mention it. Because now, Sheikh Tahir bin Ashur, he's teaching in two environments, two different, totally different style schools. And he noticed that this is not good. He anticipated that if this goes on this way, it's totally different. Now we have graduates from this school and graduates from this school. This, in the future, is going to cause some problems in the Tunisian society. It's going to cause a split in identity. So he was, one of the tasks that he took over his shoulder is to try as much as he can to close that gap. And of course, he was not wrong. He tried. He was not really successful as we're going to see, but at least he had that vision for the future. Because this Sadiqiyya is the school where Bourguiba studied. After that, he left to France and then he finished his studies. He was anticipating that something is going to go wrong if we don't close this gap. If the Jami' al-Zaytuna is so busy with these old methods, according to Sheikh Muhammad Tahir bin Ashur, and in this traditional way, while others are learning and getting in touch with the Western culture. So that's one of the things he worked for. Of course, in another level, he got the opportunity to meet the famous Egyptian scholar and reformist, and you can call him also revivalist, Muhammad Abdu, and became enthusiastic about his ideas and thoughts. Of course, he got the chance also to meet Sheikh Rashid Rida, who is the student of Sheikh Muhammad Abdu, and also he got to write in a magazine that was well-known scholarly magazine called Majallat al-Manar, the magazine of Manar, run by Sheikh Rashid Rida, rahimahullah. He was also assigned as a member at the Commission of the Reform of Zaytuna education system in 1910. He also was assigned different positions, the most important of which, or titles, is the Sheikh of Jami' al-Zaytuna, al-Jami' al-A'zam, and at the same time, the Sheikh al-Islam al-Maliki. And he said he was the first one together between these two titles. He was also a Qadi and Mufti, and you name it. He was so busy, and his focus was on the educational system. He was trying to do some reforms and to change the mindset and the way people think, because he was looking. He knows that the France colonization will end one day. But what is going to happen after that? Are we ready? As they used to say in Morocco sometimes, we took independence and we regret it. Because after the independence, then nothing was ready to run the country, and we relied on whatever is left from the colonialism. He did not, this is to be understood really well, he did not adopt direct confrontation with the French protectorate. He managed to maintain a type of relation that earned him the respect of both French and Tunisians. You might be thinking this is a scholar and he needs to be the first one to fight against, but his vision was bigger than that. He was thinking bigger than that, because as you can say, from what I understood from my research, that this is his expertise. He has a plan, he has a mission, and he does not want to ruin it. He wants to do whatever it takes to accomplish his mission without being noticed and without confrontation. Of course, at a certain point, it did not work with him, and we'll come back to it when we talk about the three major events, some three major events that maybe everybody is familiar with. So, he went through a lot of trials and tribulations, just like any other scholar. First, his wife died in 1956, then his two sons, Zain al-Abidin in 1966, and Sheikh al-Fadl bin Ashur in 1970, I mean 3 years before he passed away. May Allah have mercy on all of them. Through thoughts and actions, Muhammad Tahir bin Ashur, rahimahullah, contributed his stone to the building of reform of Arab Islamic culture and education. Building, unfortunately, is still unfinished because of the multiple political, internal, and external obstacles that he faced. His focus was on an in-depth transformation of mentalities through an overhaul of the education systems. So now, let's discuss some of the events that he went through. First, maybe all of you are familiar with something called the shortest khutbah of Jumu'ah in history. When the Sheikh is coming to the masjid to lead Jumu'ah prayer, and then while he was coming, of course, he had to go through the streets of the old Medina, Tunis al-Asima, the old streets of Medina. And he was looking and seeing what happened in the street, and then he got to the minbar. And he, after thanking Allah and praising Him, then he said in the Tunisian dialect, whose ladies, who is responsible for those ladies that I saw in the streets of Medina, of the streets of the souq, in the souq. نساء من في السوق. He repeated that several times, no one answered. Then he sat down. Then he stood up for the second khutbah and he said, لا خير في صلاتكم ونساؤكم عرايا. Meaning there is no goodness in your salah while the ladies and the women that you are responsible for are not well covered. And that's one of the things that you see, how when you see those stands, you understand better why he did what he did when avoiding confrontation with the musta'mir, with the colonialism. Now the other thing, and this is a big issue, some of you might not be familiar with, which is, it's called the naturalization issue. Naturalization issue, the naturalization law. When French government, it was a maneuver or a plan for sure to destroy the Muslim Tunisian identity. So they give the opportunity for Tunisian to become, to have the citizenship of France under some conditions. If you work if you serve in the military for 3 years or if you offer some kind of services, beneficial services to them, then you will get this. So now, this for the people of resistance, because we have to understand that the French colonialism is a little different in Tunisia than Algeria. In Tunisia and Morocco than Algeria. In Algeria, it was direct. It was استعمار استيطاني. They would used to call Algeria as the second France. But in Tunisia, they are pretending just to protect. Actually, they did some actions that maybe confused some, or it was an excuse for some Tunisians to work with them. Which is, of course, they took care of the debts of Tunisia. They start building roads, railroads, and people start seeing some kind of improvement, progress in the country. So it made it hard for those people who want to kick out France of their country. So actually those nationalists or people who care about getting this out, inshallah, France, they were looking for these opportunities. And this was their opportunity to mobilize the masses, as they say. So they said, everyone who take this jinsiyah, this citizenship, we will not allow them to be buried in the Muslims' cemeteries. And it was a big issue that lasted from the early 90s to around 1933 or 1930. Now, where the Sheikh came is because of his stand that he wants to be moderate. He does not want a confrontation. He has it's called the resident general, the representative of the French government in Tunisia, which is the actual ruler of Tunisia at that time, came to him and asked him for a fatwa to say that even though someone takes citizenship, we should not prevent his family to bury him if he died, after dying, in a Muslim cemetery. Now, this is when I found two narrations. One narration is saying that the Sheikh issued a fatwa, clear fatwa, that whoever did this, because you have to see the circumstances of Tunisia. Now we think about ourselves who have citizenship in the United States, that was not the case back then. So, but they said the French government hid it and then they start lying about the Sheikh. But when I read the fatwa, if this is the real fatwa, it was a little bit ambiguous. It was not, because he said whoever became a citizen of the France, he got out of Islam. But unless he repents. Now, if he repents, now we can bury him in the cemetery of the Muslim cemetery. So the thing that is not clear, how it's an issue of the person who's dead, it's the issue of the family. How can you make him repent after being dead? So this is why he was accused of collusion with the French government, with conspiracy or compromising with the French government. And they asked for him to be taken off the leadership of Zaytuna. This is one narration. The other narration, as I said, is he did not do that. He issued the fatwa that it's not acceptable to be a citizenship, to have citizenship of France, but he stepped down. So which narration is true? Allah knows best. But in any case, it reminded me of the story of Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu, when he killed that man after saying La ilaha illallah. And he regretted so much that he wished that he became Muslim after that. Well, the Prophet ﷺ said, what are you going to do with La ilaha illallah? Did he open his heart to see? And this helped him in the future to do what? To stay away from the fitna. When the Sahaba start fighting each other, he just stayed away from it. And this may be the case that it's in here. I'm not saying that's for sure. But I think Sheikh Tahir ibn Ashur did that fatwa, but at the same time, it gave him in the future, which is the third event here, to take that strong stand when he was asked by Bourqiba. For those who don't know Bourqiba is actually is the first president of Tunisia after the independence. He ruled for a long time. I have an introduction for him, but for the sake of the time, I cannot even say it. But just shortly, because it's important to understand with who he was dealing with.
Take another 5 minutes. That's fine.
Inshallah. So for Bourqiba, he was one of those who established Hizb al-Dustur, Tunisi. It's called a party called the Dustur. But later on, he split out of it and do the new Dustur, the new Hizb of Dustur. And then, after the French government left, he became the president. Now, even for Bourguiba, who passed away in 2000, it's hard for me to talk about someone who's dead, who cannot defend himself, but actually his actions are talking for him. I just let you listen to what he did. Because even some scholars were kind of deceived by him, including the son of Sheikh Muhammad Tahir ibn Ashur. Because when he was calling to do some reforms in the Code of Personal Status, it's called Mudawanat al-Ahwal al-Shakhsiyya, he supported him theoretically by saying that the CPS, which is the Code of Personal Status, Mudawanat al-Ahwal al-Shakhsiyya, which is responsible, for the family, marriage, divorce, inheritance, and all of that stuff. He said these CPS are possible interpretations of Islam, meaning there is a room of ijtihad in that area. And some are still defending Bourguiba up until now. He said he was trying to change within Islam, but it looks like it was not the case, because after that he did some. Let me just tell you what he did very quickly, so just to see that he was not serious about changing within Islam. So what he did is he prohibited polygamy. You can say, okay, there is ijtihad. He expanded women's access to divorce, destroying the families, of course. He raised the age at which girls could marry to 17 years old. He legalized abortion. Now, all of that you can think, oh, maybe it's debatable. But now, in 1962, he tried to cancel the fasting of Ramadan. He suggested, look, he's just like talking as a scholar. And that's what Sheikh Muhammad Tahir ibn Ashur was worried about. To have some people that have some knowledge, Islamic knowledge, but then they go to the West. And then for some reason, everything is confused in their mind, and they think they can do whatever they want because they have some knowledge. So he suggested for workers to make up their fasting when they retire or whatever it's possible. Her argument was that fasting is affecting negatively the productivity. I mean, is affecting negatively the economical growth. In 1964, he even tried to convince Hujjaj not to go to Hajj. He said, this is a waste of money. We have plenty of awliya that you can just visit them. It's going to be counted as Hajj for you. Or something like that. In 1981, and this is and by the way, he did this in the TV. He took like a cup of water or a cup of juice in the TV, and he drank it then the day of Ramadan to show that, to encourage people to break their fast. In 1981, he banned hijab, calling it that odious rag, tilka al-khirqa al-baghida, that bad rag, he could just call it hijab. And there is a recording for him available on the internet, taking off hijab of a lady in the street. So that's the event that related to Sheikh Muhammad Tahir ibn Ashur is the fasting event. So now, from history, Bourguiba thinks that this is a man who wants to keep the society together. Maybe I can use him for this. But this, as I said, the events of Tajnis, of naturalization, helped, I think, that's just what I'm assuming, helped Sheikh Tahir ibn Ashur to stood up strongly this time in a very clear way. And he told them, okay, you want a fatwa? Okay. So he was in open air in a radio station. And he said, first he started with saying that fasting is a must unless you have an excuse, a valid Shari'i excuse. Or you have to make up for it, or to the kafara, of course. And then he recited the ayahs of Siyam, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And then he said, صَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَكَذَبَ بُرْقِيبَ. صَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَكَذَبَ بُرْقِيبَ. صَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَكَذَبَ بُرْقِيبَ. Meaning Allah have told the truth and Burqiba is a liar. After that, it was narrated that the Burqiba took him off the leadership. Actually, he just make him retire. And it was narrated even if he closed Jamia al-Zaytuna because of that. And that's, again, let's go back to what I told you about Sheikh Muhammad Tahir ibn Ashur. That was what Sheikh Tahir Muhammad ibn Ashur was trying to avoid. Yes, you can take a strong stand, but what's the consequences of it? What is it? But this time, he had to take that stand because Bourguiba did not leave him any other choice. Now, the most important part is to come, which is what? Yes, his books. And I suggest for Brother Hisham that his books needs the sessions by themselves. And because they have some very, some technicalities that needs to be studied really good before for anyone to start thinking to talk about any book, unless you just bring some writings about the book and you read it to others, which is anyone can do it by going to the internet. So let's just go quickly through some of his main writings. He wrote tens of books. He said more than 30 books. So the main one is At-Tahrir wa Tanwir. Is tafsir that has like 15 big volumes, or in the small volumes maybe more than 30. And in this tafsir, he really, Sheikh Muhammad Tahir ibn Ashur showed his real knowledge. And he was so hesitant about writing this tafsir. And that's the way of the scholars, the real scholars. They don't dare to go and do tafsir of the Quran, of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when he did it, as they say, when you read any tafsir, you start in the first volume, Should I stop?
No, you have a few minutes. Go ahead.
You start the first volume, first couple volumes, you will find, like, for example, Surah Al-Baqarah, maybe 3, 4 volumes, 5 volumes. Yes, the surah is long, but by the end, you will find the Mufassir getting kind of tired or whatever, and he does not give the same attention to the beginning. But in this tafsir, is the same nafas throughout the tafsir, from beginning to the end. And he's called it Tahrir, the whole name, which makes us understand the meaning of التحرير and التنوير. تحرير المعنى السديد وتنوير العقل الجديد في تفسير الكتاب المجيد. It took him 40 to 50 years, some narrations said close to 50 years to finish it. تحرير المعنى السديد, meaning he had to go through. He is a kind of, he wants to be so thorough in the tafsir, and he was. He was. And meaning he will go, and tahrir means to edit. When you say tahrir, it's not like to free. Actually, it has some of the meaning of free in the text from all the additives and the unnecessary stuff. But tahrir, it's to edit. He will go to a matter, fiqh matter, whatever, Arabic matter, and whatever Shar'i matter, and he will present the opinions, and he will choose the opinion he thinks fits best. I don't claim that I read the whole tafsir. What I'm telling you here, just from what I read about the tafsir. Because this tafsir is only for scholarly studies. I mean, you can try. Go and try. Even if he tried to help the reader by doing, like, I think it's in introductions to teach you about, you know, the sciences of tafsir and the nasikh and mansukh and all of that, but still. So the scholar said, this is for the students of knowledge and the strong students of knowledge, not for anyone. The thing that some of the critics said about this book is he did not do the sanad. Of course, he has an excuse for that. Because the sheikh has a lot of knowledge. If he can just, like, he just say, okay, instead of saying the whole hadith, the whole chain, he will say, for example, an Abi Hurairah, or whatever narrator is narrating that opinion. And he does not, you're not going to find in the margin who said what. This is what I'm telling you. You have to be kind of student of knowledge to understand that tafsir, or not to understand, to benefit, to get the benefit of that tafsir. Yes, you can read it, you can take some benefits, but in order for you to see how huge is that tafsir, you have to be really struggling with it for some time. Unfortunately, I heard some of the recent shuyukh who were asked about this tafsir and said, you better avoid it. Just stick with the... I think this is mainly because, by the way, this is not something like, this is well known when there is biography of a scholar. They will tell you this is his madhab, fiqhi madhab, this is his aqidah madhab, and so on. So his aqidah was Ash'ari, and he was proud of it, and he was announcing it, and he was defending it. Maybe that caused him some rivals. And you say, in Morocco, khuk fil harfa aduk. Your brother in profession is your enemy, because there is competition. So, just like they did to Tafsir al-Kashaf, unfortunately, al-Kashaf al-Zamakhshari, which is one of his favorite tafsir that he put in his book. Because Al-Kashaf al-Zamakhshari is an imam, Jar Allah al-Zamakhshari is an imam of Mu'tazila. Yes, his aqidah, some of it is, something is wrong with it, but it does not prevent us from benefiting, for he's an imam in lugha, he's imam in linguistics. So, this is just so sad to hear that. Maybe the sheikh, I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt, meant that maybe you should go just with the easy tafsirs instead of going to that tafsir. So the other important book is Maqasid al-Sharia al-Islamiyah. This is a huge book. This is where his thoughts and ideas and plan and mission of revivalism, of reformism came when he started talking about Maqasid al-Sharia. And this is very controversial. I mean, you cannot, myself, I cannot talk about that because I feel myself under that level. Because he went to some areas that are technicalities that really, they were like known forever. And he's trying to shake them a little bit. With proof and evidence, if you follow his reasoning, it makes sense, but it's kind of hard to put through the minds of the people. And that was his battle. It was challenge, is to change the mindsets. Agree with him, disagree with him, that's a different story. But this is and these other books, Maqasid Sharia is the aims of Sharia, the objectives of the Islamic Sharia. أصول النظام الاجتماعي في الإسلام, the foundations of the social system in Islam is not dawn or morning close. أليس الصبح بقريب, and other books. And I stop here because it's a lot to say. But subhanallah, جزاكم الله خير, بارك الله فيكم.
جزاك الله خير يا شيخ شفيق. Indeed, you have a deal, inshallah. Whenever you are ready to talk about the thoughts of Ibn Ashur, you will have a session, inshallah. Just let me know when you are ready, because you're right. This is not a session that you can cover both his life and his thoughts. So whenever you are ready for a session on his thoughts, inshallah, we'll be more than happy, inshallah, to have a session for that. But again, mashallah, I mean, the point in here is to explain the history, how those people under colonial system manage to come up with some ijtihad that some people may agree or might not disagree. I only want to just say something about Shafiq. Those so-called scholars, and I'm sorry to call them because they call themselves Salafis. I'm not sure how much they have to do with the Salafis. You can just see now in Saudi, the true Salafis are in jail, and those people who would say, don't read for this sheikh, don't read for this sheikh, they are silent. So this throwing doubts about someone like him and his tafsir, I mean, aren't those the same people who would say that Sayyid Qutb is such and such and such? So I would not really pay much attention in this regard. They have been exposed. Walillah alhamd, yani. We are no longer, inshallah, have this issue. I just have a question before we go to the audience. My understanding is that when he took that stand from Bourguiba was very furious with him, but he did not do anything until the following Friday, where Sheikh ibn Ashur went to Jum'ah prayer, and he just, after thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praising him, he said, Allah says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أقم الصلاة. And they close the Zaytuna afterward. I'm not sure if this riwayah that I read has a merits.
Yes, as I said, there are stories and narrations, and it's hard to say which one is right. But this is the one I said, it's the well-known one that everybody is repeating. Is it true, or just like Brother Hisham said, Allah knows best. It's hard for me to answer.
Any question or comment about the life of Sheikh Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur? Any? Okay, let me just say a few words about the tafsir. I was talking to Imam Muammar yesterday. Alhamdulillah, I got some training from Sheikh al-Hanuti, Allah rahmah, in the studies of the tafsir. So I read through many of the tafsir. But when I was preparing Surah Al-Fatiha during COVID for my family, I told Imam Muammar, when I read Surah Al-Fatiha, I mean, each sentence you need to read it and read it again. I said by the middle of it, my head was spinning, not from fasting, but from reading Ibn Ashur. Because basically, one of the outstanding parts of his tafsir is trying to convince the reader that although our Arabiya is very weak, but you can see why the Quran is mu'jiz to the Arabs. And those things that he pointed throughout the tafsir are really excellent. And as Sheikh Shafiq said, if you just read sections from here and there, it's the same, zeal that is there. I will close with this, inshallah. When I was 5 years old, this was 1964. I still remember, and it resonated in my ear, demonstration in Palestine. This is 1964, when Bourguiba came to visit Palestine. We were under the Jordanian rule. There was demonstrations in the streets all over, saying basically this sentence: "Dus, dus, Bourguiba ya Jesus." Basically saying, just hit on the gas. Bourguiba is an agent and a spy. Why? Because he came with a proposal to give part of Palestine to the Jews. This is 1964. As I said, I was 5 years old. Still this, demonstration, what they had said, this is among the few things that are still in my ears from that time. Basically, demonstration all over. دوس دوس أبو القيبة يا جسوس. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بارك الله فيك وفي جهودك في عائلتك إن شاء الله. We looking forward إن شاء الله to hear from you next time إن شاء الله. جزاكم الله خيرا.